For almost 40 years now, one band has been in this constant battle with the very soul of punk rock. Sometimes they bend it, sometimes they break it, and they're always rebuilding it in their own image. We're diving into the story of Green Day, which is really a masterclass in how to survive in the music world.
So here's the central puzzle of Green Day, right? It's this classic punk rock paradox. Imagine you start out in a basement, you live and die by the strict DIY code, you build a whole community from scratch. But what happens when your dreams get bigger than the basement?
And that's the real kicker. It's not just about getting big once. It's about being cast out, basically exiled from your own world, only to turn around and become one of the biggest bands on the planet. And then, after all that, to do it all over again? That's a story of some serious, spectacular reinvention.
To really get Green Day, you have to go back, way back, to their roots, in the fiery, ideological heart of the East Bay punk scene.
Okay, so 92-4 Gilman Street. This place was way more than just a music club. It was like the church of punk rock purity. Seriously, it had this incredibly strict moral code stenciled right there on the walls. No major labels, no violence, no racism, no sexism. For a young band like Green Day, this place was their boot camp, a whole community built on this fierce sense of independence.
And man, did they climb the ladder in that scene fast. You've got these childhood friends, Billy Joe and Mike, who link up with this absolute monster of a drummer, Trey Cool, and bam, the classic lineup is locked in. Before long, they're the band everyone's buzzing about. Their indie album, Kerplunk, sells 50,000 copies, which is huge for a word-of-mouth record. And you know what happens when there's that much buzz, right? The suits from the major labels start sniffing around.
But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. In 1993, they did the one thing a Gilman band was never, ever supposed to do. They signed a major label record deal. To the hardcore scene, this was the ultimate sin, a betrayal, so they were immediately banned from the club that had literally made them. As Billy Joe put it, there was no turning back. That bridge was completely burned.
So, with the door to their past slammed shut and locked behind them, Green Day walked through a new one, and right onto the world stage. That one controversial decision led directly to one of the most defining albums of the entire 1990s.
That album was, of course, Dookie. And just look at these numbers. They are absolutely staggering. We're talking more than 20 million copies sold in the US. It wins a Grammy for Best Alternative Album, and now it's even preserved in the National Recording Registry. So yeah, they went from being punk rock outcasts to global superstars, seemingly overnight. But the reason Dookie was so huge wasn't just the catchy hooks. It was a cultural lightning rod. When Billy Joe Armstrong was singing about being so damn bored I'm going blind on their song Long View, he was giving a voice to a whole generation of kids who felt trapped by suburban boredom and anxiety. He made their private feelings of being fragile and restless feel totally universal. And then there was this moment, Woodstock 94. The whole festival turns into a giant mud pit after a massive downpour. And what does Green Day do? They start a full-on mud war with the entire audience. It was absolute chaos, it was bratty, it was snotty, and it became the defining image of 90s alternative culture, broadcast into living rooms everywhere.
You know how it goes, though. The higher you climb, the further you can fall. The pressure to keep up that insane Woodstock-level energy led to burnout, and the albums that followed just couldn't capture that same magic. The band found themselves at a creative crossroads, and that led to one of the biggest mysteries in their entire career.
You can see them searching for a new path on their next couple of albums. With Nimrod, they gave us that huge, unexpected acoustic hit Good Riddance, which proved they could write a real pop song. But then, with Warning in 2000, they leaned even harder into folk and power pop, and it just kind of tanked. It became their commercial low point. Musically, they were adrift.
So to get back on track, they decided to go back to their roots. They recorded an entire album of raw, fast, back-to-basics punk rock. The album was called Cigarettes and Valentines, and right when it was about to be finished, it just vanished. So what really happened to those master tapes?
Well, for years, the official story was that the tapes were stolen right out of the studio. A tragedy, sure, but one they always called a blessing in disguise. The reality, though, it seems the band just wasn't satisfied with the record. The songs weren't good enough. And that stolen tapes story, it was the perfect myth, a convenient way for them to scrap the whole thing and start over with a much, much bigger ambition.
And that decision to just abandon a whole album wasn't an ending at all. It was actually the catalyst for the single most ambitious, career-revitalizing project they would ever attempt.
So instead of another simple punk record, they went for something massive, a full-blown punk rock opera. They were looking at epic albums like The Who's Tommy. They were looking at Broadway musicals. And they used all of it to create this huge narrative critiquing the political climate in post-9/11 America. I mean, for a punk band, this was a completely revolutionary idea.
The whole opera follows this central character, the Jesus of Suburbia, who's just a disillusioned kid trying to find some meaning in his life. And he's torn between these two figures, his own dark, self-destructive alter ego, Saint Jimmy, and this revolutionary girl, what's her name, who represents real hope and change. It's this complex story about anger, love, and figuring out who you are.
And the world absolutely ate it up. American Idiot sold over 7 million copies in the US, it won the Grammy for Best Rock Album, and it was even turned into a hit Broadway musical. Green Day wasn't just back, they were more relevant, more vital than ever before. This was their incredible second act.
But if you've been paying attention, you know the cycle. Just when it looked like they had conquered the world all over again, the pattern of crisis and recovery kicked in. The band launched into their most audacious and, in the end, most self-destructive project yet.
In 2012, they decided to release not one, not two, but 3 full albums at once. Uno, Dos, and Tres. The idea was to capture every single side of their sound, but it was just too much music for people to digest. And as you can see from the sales figures, the whole project was a commercial letdown. But even worse, the intense pressure of it all led to a serious personal crisis that derailed the entire thing.
After a very public meltdown on stage, Billy Joe Armstrong checked himself into rehab for substance abuse. The band's reaction was swift and decisive. They canceled everything. The entire tour, all promotion for the trilogy, gone. As their bassist Mike Dirnt put it, the choice was simple. They had to put the life of their friend before anything and everything else.
So after all these ups and downs, what's the secret? How they lasted so long? Well, it really boils down to 4 key things. 1, their sound. You hear that crunchy guitar, you know it's a Green Day song instantly. It's their sonic anchor. 2, their brotherhood. That quote from Mike Dirnt says it all. Their friendship has always been the most important thing. 3, their themes just don't get old. Angst, boredom, rebellion. Every new generation connects with that. And finally, 4, they are masters of their own story. From the stolen tapes to everything else, they've always curated their own legend.
And it all brings us to this final question. The story of Green Day is this constant negotiation, this tug of war between their punk rock roots and their stadium-sized ambition. They traded the so-called authenticity of the Gilman Street scene for a global legacy. And in doing so, maybe they created a whole new kind of authenticity, one that isn't about staying in one place, but about the relentless will to survive and to reinvent yourself over and over again.